Hi, I'm Lisa Chastain, and welcome to the Real Money Podcast. Some of the most successful women in the world hate talking about money, and that's exactly why we're here. My mission is to remove fear around finances by creating a simple, effective way to manage your money and build the financial freedom you deserve. As a keynote speaker, best-selling author, and passionate coach, I will be sharing my insights on overcoming money challenges, coaching women live on air, and interviewing some of the most accomplished women to learn from their experiences. So, say goodbye to fear, say goodbye to budgeting woes, and welcome to Real Money. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Real Money Podcast, where we get real about money, mindset, and making moves that lead to financial freedom. Today, I'm with someone that I not only admire, but have had the pleasure of collaborating with over the past year in a few different ways. The first time we worked together was during his summit, Invest with Benefits, and the featured speaker, the keynote speaker at that time was Daymond John from Shark Tank. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is big time. And I was so honored to be a part of the summit. Side note, I've been coaching, mentoring, and advising in the finance industry for a decade. I vet humans, I promote and refer to, I vet them heavily before I bring them to you. So I don't just have Christian on the podcast because he's an expert. I truly respect the work that he and Money Insights are doing, along with his vision and mission for and passion for the work that he's doing, which we'll get into. I'm really, really grateful to introduce him to you today. And I know he's someone that you're going to be able to learn a lot from. So Christian, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm super excited to be here. And can I just say, you were an amazing addition to the summit that we had last year. We're planning to do it again. We'll be expecting you to join us again because you were awesome.
Hell yeah. Let's do it. I'm so excited. Okay. So a little bit about Christian. He's the founder, well, co-founder really, because you and Rod run Money Insights. But in your own words, you're kind of the face. You're the one that does the podcasts and likes to chat it out. Right?
So I actually started in the business many years before Rod did. And what happened was when I first brought Rod on, he was working, I don't know what the right word is. He was more working for me than with me initially. And over time, I just brought him in to be a partial owner in the business. And so he, over time, has become my partner because he's brilliant and brings a lot to the table.
Yeah. You seem to have different strengths, which is so important in a partnership.
Oh man, it makes such a big difference. I am not the behind the scenes, like get into the details guy. I'm more like vision, ideas, big ideas, and you have to be able to execute those ideas or nothing works, right? So Rod has been so important for us in helping me be able to actually execute and roll out the visions that we have. So he's been great. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the dynamic that the two of us have.
I love it. I learned so much from you guys. You have an amazing podcast, and you're all about contrarian advice, and you're really up against the edges of the finance industry, calling things out. We're going to talk about Dave Ramsey later. And what I love so much about what you teach, which was what the summit was all about, is alternative investments. Not that there's not a place for traditional investments. So listen, ladies, listening to this conversation today, I want you to know that there's so much beyond investing in the stock market and your 401k. And Christian, I've got some really great questions so we can teach on this podcast and start pointing my listeners in certain directions, because there's a big, bad world out there of investing, and it's scary. I get it, but we're going to break it down for you in a way where I hope you're inspired to take action today.
I love it. I'm totally on board. I love to teach. And really, like, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It won't change. The problems that exist within the financial world won't change unless we proactively teach people how to kind of shift those. And we'll talk more about this, but I'm firmly in the belief that the traditional path alone is just broken. It's not getting people where they want to be. I could roll out statistic after statistic suggesting that people aren't, retiring as comfortable as they want. They don't have, people don't have nearly as much in savings as they want. And sure, some of that's a discipline issue, but some of it's just like a framework issue, right? And so we can dissect which of those go which direction, but I just genuinely believe a lot of it is a mindset. And the biggest issue for me is this idea of accumulation versus cash flow,
Mm-hmm.
And this mindset changed my world entirely. So
Mm.
I started in the financial services industry doing the very traditional things that I now are claiming are broken. If I'm being totally honest, I really struggled to feel like I was making a difference in people's lives. And I also wasn't getting where I wanted to go. So it was kind of this like double-edged sword. I'm like, okay, like we can do this, but here's the problem, Lisa. People do not want the 40-year track that says if I'm ultra disciplined for the next 40 years,
No,
I have a good chance to retire comfortably. That sucks.
it
Like
sucks.
that's not a vision that people have anymore. That may have
It's
worked
not.
when social security, people were living off of pensions and social security, but like people just don't think that way in general. And
No.
yet the whole industry still teaches, hey, do these things for the next 25, 30, however many years, and then you'll have enough money that you can figure out how to pull money off of it and hope that you don't
Hope.
run out of money. Hope you
Well,
so
or hope that there's not a crash like 2008 and then you're back to square zero. I actually have a friend, we're already on a tangent, but let's follow this tangent because it's so powerful. Is I have a friend, he's 50 in his mid 50s, relying on his pension. The company did some it poured and they took some poor advice. His pension was almost $1 million, so the light at the end of the tunnel was right there for them, and then it dropped by half of its value.
that's
He went from
hard.
being almost a millionaire having $1 million pension to $500,000. He's like, oh my God, I have to work another 10 or 15 years. This is devastating. So the problem is putting your faith in institutions, but also being a financial advisor. And now you're still a financial advisor. You still sell financial products, but taking
Mhm.
this new direction, new conversation. We're going to talk about investments. That's the brokenness. The
Yeah.
brokenness is follow this path, but if financial advisors can only give certain advice because that's all they're credentialed to do. Is that the problem that you're speaking into?
I think that's a huge part of it. I think the one of the big issues that exists when we're kind of taking this difference between traditional, which by the way, I should just emphasize traditional when I'm talking about that, I'm just talking about stocks, bonds, mutual funds, that kind of
Yep.
stuff. And really anything that's outside of that would be kind of your alternative side.
Yep.
And just to be really clear, what we're suggesting is that we take the best from the traditional that exists because there are some important good foundational things.
Sure.
We take the best from the alternative space and we bring those together to create something dramatically different. So back to your question about the issue with advisors. Well, there is a chasm between being a traditional financial advisor, and really I should say any financial advisor, because guess what, financial advisors don't sell real estate.
Nope.
They might be able to, like, there might be a REIT or some type of fund that they can get, but they're not going to sell hard real estate. That's just not what they do. They're
Nope.
not going to be, introducing you to a private equity opportunity. What they are going to do is be focused on gathering assets, utilizing it through the market. So it just ends up being too narrow of a focus. And so people are totally focused on this model, which again is based on accumulation. I save as much as I can for as long as I can, and then I have this pot of money. Now, what do I do with it? So it's like, it's problematic getting there, but it's maybe even more problematic once you get there and you have to figure out how to like make this pot of money last the rest of your life. Well, if you could go into that situation and say, like, instead of having $1 million of cash sitting there, what if I had $18,000 a month of cash flow that I built that I can
Yeah.
really rely on? That, by the way, is also accumulating in value with the underlying asset.
Yeah.
And that changed to me. I saw it firsthand. People that were really building wealth were just, without question, like, there's very few exceptions that I was finding where people weren't moving into that alternative space. And so it was just kind of like hitting me in the face over and over. And eventually I was smart enough, barely, but smart enough to say, like, I think there's something to it. And so then I just did the same thing myself, created that same framework, built like my own financial independence, and have all this confidence that now we can help people do the exact same thing. But it really starts with like that mindset difference, that mind
You have to
shift.
expand it. You have to expand it.
Absolutely.
And you're in your 40s. We're similar in age.
Yep.
So
I'm
you've created
41. Just barely in my 40s.
just over the hump. Just over the hump. So by the age of 41, you figured this out. And to simplify this, so most women are still introductory investors, high earners, which is who you work with and who I work with, high earners who are saying, what can I do with my money? And what it means is that you need to bake a bigger pie with more things in the pie. If you're thinking about traditional wealth, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, there was a pension, there was a 401k, and maybe you were dabbling in stocks and mutual funds. I will say for women, the conversation on Instagram, which is where most people are hanging out having conversations about wealth building for women, or TikTok, is still investing in the stock market. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but
Right.
let's broaden the scope. And then you and I are going to dig into the different concepts of what could be in your pie to result in more cash flow, because that's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate game, is cash flow.
It just creates freedom.
That's the freedom that's the buzzword, financial freedom. But having a $2 million portfolio doesn't necessarily create freedom.
That's exactly right. In fact, I've worked with literally spoken to thousands of people across the country over the last 15, 20 years. And it's amazing how many people are scared that they're going to run out of money. And it doesn't matter the amount that they have. Like, I've talked to people that have $10 million in, liquid capital that they're using, and they're spending like 150 grand a year, but they're still worried. It's because of the framework. So you're either worried about and have the potential to really run out of money, or you're in the mindset that I could, because of these, outside factors suddenly going crazy. Now I'm left with half of my portfolio. And now I'm suddenly like, okay, I have to dramatically shift and change my life. Like, it's not just money. It's like, it changes your life. And so again, if people can just get to this framework where they're building a cash flow model, there's still a place, right? Like, I still invest in the stock market. And I think that's great. So so I don't want to throw that under the bus. I just want to throw that under the bus as the only thing. If that's your only thing you're doing, then that's what we're throwing under the bus. To your point, we need to broaden it up. I like the idea of, putting more ingredients in the pie.
That's it. Let's just bake a different pie. One with lots of different ingredients. You jumped in there. I was going to cover a lot of this stuff, and boom, there it is. I do want to talk about those. So at the beginning of the Invest with Benefits Summit, I really didn't know you and Rod very well, and you told a really compelling story, because two of the vehicles that you do teach are insurance investment vehicles. Mm-hmm. So ladies, put your listening ears on. You're going to learn a lot in this podcast, but we're not going to leave you stranded. It's not that you're just going to learn and have nowhere to go after this. Christian and Rod are teachers. They're educators. They want to show you how to implement these different strategies, and they've got some amazing resources to do that. So we can only do what we can do on the podcast today. But if you're listening to this and you're feeling overwhelmed or like, oh man, this is a lot of information, we got your back. But for you, you're a financial advisor. It sounds like you've been in the industry almost your entire career, your professional career.
Since I was 21, I got in the industry, and that's been my home the entire time.
Why?
Okay, that's the question. So how did I get there? Yeah. I had kind of a unique experience. So when I was 19 years old, my dad was diagnosed. I was 18. My dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He passed away a year later at the ripe old age of 49. So young. I mean, it's funny because I'm short, but my dad was 6'3" and 190 pounds, and just seemed like as healthy as you could be. But cancer doesn't care how healthy you look, right? So but now, I mean, that's obviously a really sad part, but the story continues. Now my mom is in this situation. She's also 49, and she has to figure out, she has 7 kids. I think probably 4 of them, or maybe 3 or 4 were still at home. Some of them were in college and stuff. But now she has to kind of figure out, how do I continue to run our family and our life, without the primary income earner. And I say primary, my mom didn't work at all. She worked like crazy. She was a workhorse. She just didn't work outside the home.
She had 7 kids.
So she had 7 kids. My mom was she was incredible. She would get up at 6 a.m. and go mow the lawn. And it was just unbelievable. She's my mom's 5'1", 85 pounds. And she's out. She just was a workhorse. Anyway, so back to what happened. Well, my mom now has, my mom, luckily, my dad did have life insurance. He probably didn't have enough life insurance, at least not as much as I would recommend somebody have, but he did have life insurance. It was like, I think his was 500,000. It wasn't like that significant.
No.
The good news is that they had been good savers. They, they didn't have very much debt on the house. And so basically my mom was left with, something like $500,000, Social Security, a little pension, and, whatever she could create from that. Well, this is where the story kind of gets ugly. So she then trusts some financial advisors, and unfortunately, one of them was a close friend of my dad's that like she really felt like she could trust. I don't think that he was malicious in doing this, so I don't want to suggest that.
Yeah.
But she ended up in a Ponzi scheme, a real estate deal where she put like $100,000 and she just lost it. So now you take 20% of all of the money she has left. Oh, and it breaks my heart.
I hear it all the time. Someone's listening to this and has had a similar experience.
Yeah, and it's just so sad.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. It's my mom, so obviously I was pretty passionate about trying to help her. But then I just thought, like, I kind of got intrigued by the industry and felt like, okay, that sucks. Let's make sure that that's not happening to people. And at the very least, I could do a better job at this. And even if my better job just meant being more transparent, more open, more education, like those kind of things, that was kind of what was important to me. So when I started, I didn't start in the high income space that we play in today. I just was out there to help people not end up like my mom. And so that's kind of how it all got kicked off. Yeah.
So did you go to college?
Partially. I'm a proud college dropout. So I dropped out. I say that all the time because this is going to sound crazy, but dropping out of college was the best decision that I ever made. I was, as I said earlier, I'm not like a detail person. So sitting in those painful classes was just so hard for me. So what I did is I went to like the College for Financial Planning, and I went to American College. I got designations and things, but I was like, I've got to move. Oh, like I can't just sit through this for the next 3 years. So I took off. I started in the industry, and in some ways that was actually good for me because I didn't have like as many backups, right? It's not like my backup plan was like, oh, I'll just take my master's degree and whatever. Like it required me to make sure that I was going to do this and do it well and make it work and be successful. And so for that reason, and for me, it made a huge, like it was the best decision I ever made. I was completely financially independent when I was probably 35. So like my life, because of that decision, has been really, incredible for that. One of the best few decisions I've made is what I'd say, but not for everybody, which I totally get.
Agreed. Well, the truth is, I mean, for me, no one that I know, other than people whose maybe parents are in the industry or maybe it's a legacy, there's hardly anyone that I know that grew up wanting to be an insurance salesperson or a financial advisor.
Yes,
it's just not.
It doesn't happen.
We want to be doctors and lawyers and nurses and attorneys. Or I said both, but
I wouldn't have even known what like a financial, like I mean, maybe just because it's pretty clear when you say it, but like I didn't even really think of that as a career when I was young. In fact, when I came back, I went on an LDS mission for 2 years in Virginia. When I came back, I was convinced I was going to get a doctorate in theology. Yes. And I know, ambitious, right? And now I'm like 6 months in, I'm like, okay, no, that's not going to work.
Well, you and I are very kindred spirits, as I'm not a detail person. And when I got into the finance industry, I was like, okay, I've got to figure out my purpose here, because being in the weeds and details of compliance and numbers, I can do it, but it's really not my jam. For you, the reason you've been so successful, I believe, is that motivation. You were like, I got to fix this for my family. I don't want anybody that I know or love to go through this again. And that's what makes you trustworthy, because you also are cutting through the BS in the industry, because there are a lot of schemes and Ponzi schemes and people out there. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, no question. And what's interesting is I'm promoting moving into the alternative investment space, and yet it's also a little bit of the Wild West, right?
Yeah, it is.
And that's why you have to be really thoughtful and careful. So I think part of the reason that so many people just go to the market is because it's become so mainstream. It's so easy. We can just, check a box on our HR form that says, now we're putting money into a 401k or whatever. And people don't view it as something they can just lose. Well, you can lose money, obviously, but that's not the way people think about it typically, right? And so when you get into this alternative space, there's some really like key elements that make it a lot more powerful. You can use leverage. You've got huge tax benefits that don't exist there. But and this is key, you have to make sure to do the due diligence and work with people who have strong track records. And right now, it's not as regulated as the stocks, bonds, mutual fund space. And so there is, I think, an extra layer of due diligence. And yet, if you're willing to do that, I think that the rewards are exponential in terms of what it can mean for someone financially, just based on my own experience and what I've seen from, we have 1,600 clients across the country. So like, this is what's helping people, and it really works.
Well, this is how the wealthy have built wealth from the beginning of time.
Absolutely.
Now it's the information, podcasts like this, podcasts like yours, information is so much more available. But I do want to talk about the mindset. Looking back at, so men and women are spoken for, so two things. Men and women are spoken to differently when it comes to investing. Mm-hmm. Men have been socialized. Women really just got the rights to do this stuff less than 100 years ago. So there's a mindset there. Men are championed for taking risk, thinking outside the box. Men traditionally have run the investment world. They still do. 22% of advisors still are female.
Yeah.
Women we're coming up around.
Making progress, but still too few.
We're doing it. We're doing the work. This is the conversation. I know you are championing women. Thank you for that. We'll talk about take the lead before we close out. Okay. So with that though, your mom's 49 years old. This is 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. And she took a risk and made an investment. It ended up going south. Do you know the mindset that your mom had when she made that decision? Have you been able to break that down with her? Where was she coming from? What was her operating conversation in making that decision?
So if I'm being really honest, my mom was just thinking, I trust this person that I'm working with. It had nothing, she didn't know the investment. Like she reviewed some basic stuff, but really she was saying, I trust this person to do the right thing and help me in a meaningful way. And I'm going on the recommendation for that reason alone, which by the way, I would suggest isn't good enough, right? So there's some mistakes that were made there, but I really believe that was kind of the primary motivation that she had.
I think that's exactly what happens. Someone that we trust or we want to trust has this great vehicle opportunity. I got sold a REIT in my 20s. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You follow the REIT space, there are some good ones out there, but it got locked up and I didn't know what I was doing because the mindset for women, to be honest, is we don't know enough and we aren't smart enough and we don't have the information. So we'd rather trust someone else. And we've got to bust through that, which is exactly why you're here, Christian, because I want to talk about how they can start busting through it as women. And you made a very powerful distinction. Trust is not enough. If you're going to invest in anything, do the research. Treat it like a part-time job is what I tell my clients. If you're going to invest in anything, it must be your part-time job. And you are smart enough. Women are more educated than men today. We can do it.
Well, my experience is they're way smarter than me. I know that my wife's way smarter than me. So that's enough. And can I just tell you, when Heather's amazing, she's just been just so great. She takes care of a lot of the things that I can't handle. She's like my rod, but in-house, right? I still struggle and she just comes in and shows me how to get some things done. So, I really have a hard time when I see situations where here's an example. There are times when Heather and I might go into, let's say we're building a house right now, right? And sometimes it really bothers me, probably more than her, but maybe her too, when they talk more directly to me.
Yep.
And it's still a problem. It happens everywhere. I'll be honest, I wasn't as aware of it probably up until, I would say that Heather really kind of introduced me to being more thoughtful about that, right? In my head, I was kind of like, that's old news. Like women have all the rights now. That's not an issue. And that's just not the case.
Not the case.
So anyway, I have over the last 5 years, especially tried to put on the rooting for more equality. And again, it just doesn't make any sense in today's day and age with the technology. Everybody has access to the stuff. But to your point, Lisa, the good news is it is inching the right direction. So
Agreed.
we'll keep working at it.
We're here. That's what we're here to do, is to keep working at it. All right. So there's the risk and safety mindset, and there are those kinds of investors. You talk about the investor mindset. You're teaching your clients about investor mindset. Yes, we need to hedge for risk. We need to moderate for risk and be mindful of it, but we can't let fear stop us from taking action. And the truth is, Christian, if we're being brutally honest, especially to move into an alternative investment space, isn't it true that you're probably going to lose some money along the way?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I absolutely think that's fair. So I invested in an ATM fund that went belly up and ended up being a disaster.
What does ATM mean?
ATM, like, I actually don't know, but where where you put the money in, you take money in and out, like the machines.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like
Okay.
it was actually
an actual
owning ATM machines. Yeah, sorry.
Got it. Okay.
And I was trying to think, what does ATM stand for? But anyway, the actual ATM machines. And so
Okay.
like the idea is that there's some really cool ideas, and it absolutely can work. And there's been funds out there that did really well. Well, mine ended up not doing well. In fact, it ended up a similar situation where the person that was running the thing was selling the same machine to multiple people. Like, you can't really do that, you know?
can't do that.
So it was a mess. And so to your point, yes. And yet I just want to emphasize this like crazy. Like 15 out of 16 of the last alternative investments I've done have really crushed it. So especially over like the last decade, when, real estate has just been booming, like there was opportunities to, double your money in just a few years and create like really significant cash flow just because of the increase in value that the underlying properties were having. So it really is like, you're right. There's 100%, you have to go in with the expectation that I could lose money at times. But I'll also say this: the overall risk adjusted returns we're able to produce, again, you got tax benefits and all these other things, just far outpace that. So that doesn't mean all of your money should be there, but I genuinely believe that it means a portion of it should be there if you really want to accelerate your timeline. So if you're comfortable with the 35 years of putting money in your 401k and then hoping that the market performs, like that can work. Like it can work. But what I'm suggesting is, if you want to accelerate the timeline, if you want to make sure that you're more secure, then it just makes so much sense to bring that in. And again, as much as anything, bring in a cash flow mindset, because if you can do that, you're getting away from this whole broken accumulation model that just scares like, Lisa, this is like the most crazy thing. You know what the 4% rule is, right?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Well,
can you explain it though? Because some of our listeners may not. Yeah.
So the 4% rule is basically a model that was come up with as what people would call a safe withdrawal rate in a retirement account. So for example, say I have $1 million in my 401k or whatever, the 4% rule would say that I can take $40,000 a year plus inflation and have a relatively high, like an 80% probability of not running out of money. But
For
what's
20
crazy...
years. Only for 20 years though.
Yeah, for 20 years. So what's crazy is that there is a high probability in those situations that people do run out of money. And so then all of a sudden, like, think about how crazy this is, Lisa. If I've got $1 million saved, I'm feeling really good about my retirement, and now your advisor comes in and is like, you could probably take 30 to 40 grand off of that. And you're thinking like, okay, that's not going to replace my income, right? It's just not enough. So not only is the methodology to get there broken and takes incredible discipline, which I'm all for. I love discipline. But once you get there, it could be catastrophic. To your point before, if I'm at that point and suddenly the market takes a 25% dip, now your life has materially changed in that you don't feel like you can retire and you have to now work another 7 years. Well, guess what? When you're 60 years old or 65 years old and that's taking you up to 72, like, this sounds morbid, but you could die in that time, right? Like, that's a big difference in your life. Like, that's just so... Anyway, so I think about it and I'm just like, the good news is, here's the good news. The people I talk to, and I'm certain the people that you're talking to, want something better than that, right? They're not okay with it. They want financial freedom that comes quicker, not just because they want to get rich. It's because people want to live life on their terms and be able to do like... And I just think the messaging at the core of it is, we can do better. It just takes a little bit of a tweak in mindset to get there.
That's right. Millennials, hey, We're changing the game.
Mm-hmm.
Gen Z is all about this. They're all
Yes.
about this. So millennials, we're shifting it. We're watching our parents live and lead unhappy lives. Boomers have basically said, F off, we're going to spend all of our money and enjoy our lives because we spent 60 years, 70 years just pinching our pennies and getting by for what? Right?
Yeah.
For what? So hopefully you're listening to this and you're feeling motivated and inspired. And I'm sure by now you're thinking, well, what do I do? So if I don't just collect my pension, by the way, in order to get a pension and for it to make sense, you need to be at a company for a really long time. And millennials are not staying for a very long time.
Another important point.
Right? You want to leave a job, but then you're beholden to the company. I mean, there's just all kinds of reasons we're opening this conversation up. But let's dispel one of the myths, because there's this term being thrown around on social media and it sounds so sexy. Passive income.
Yes, passive income.
And with everyone that I know, you've got to start where we're going to talk about where you can start too, ladies. So, hold on, we're going to get there. But if you have an alternative investment portfolio, if you have a portfolio at all, nothing is truly passive. You have to have your eye on it. You have to know how the game is played. You have to monitor it. You have to know when to cash out or when to cash in. It's not truly passive, is it, Christian?
Yeah, I think there are different levels of this, but I don't think anything is just set it and forget it, right?
It sounds great, doesn't it?
It sounds nice and but the reality is like nobody's ever going to care about our money as much as we do. So it just makes sense for us to keep an eye on it. If I'm doing, let's say that I'm investing in something like a syndication that's really popular. I can go into a real estate syndication where somebody else is the managing partner. You're just putting in money as a limited partner. Well, in a situation like that, like that's where a lot of the passive income space like kind of comes in, but it's not passive, particularly in the beginning, or it shouldn't be, right? So going back to my mom's experience, don't go with someone just because you know them or you feel like you trust them. Actually take the time to look into the deals that are available and then determine what makes the most sense. I think that's kind of the big key that has to start happening. But if we will do that, then we'll still end up in a good spot.
Yeah, we can. But and have cash flow. We
yes,
can have
and
cash
create
flow.
real cash flow that, like, again, it's just like a peace of mind. And I think that's what people are missing. Like, if I just know money's coming in every month, well, then I'm not worried about running out of it. I still have to manage it because, to your point, nothing's passive. I can go, but and then when I get into like the real estate where I'm doing hands-on stuff, there's nothing passive about that, right? Yeah. Like, that's a lot of work. And yet it can still be unbelievably valuable, right? We always hear the mantra thrown out that real estate's created the most millionaires. I think that that's absolutely true. I can't verify it, but my experience suggests that that's true. So it's not that not having like true, like just completely passive income is a bad thing, right? Like there's still I would suggest that there's actually a benefit to being involved with it. Just because not only do we know better what's kind of going on, but we can work kind of within our passion and try to invest in a way that intertwines with our values, right?
That's right.
So it's like it all has to kind of come together. And again, my experience is when those things come together, and I'm making it sound like some big thing. It really isn't. It's just a few simple steps that need to happen before you're taking this step where, again, has just a massive impact on the future of your financial life.
What are those simple steps?
The first step has got to be listening to somebody like Lisa Chastain, right? Because she's teaching you things that are just critical. Like, well, I'm one of those, I don't like budgeting. That's like not my thing.
No, we're going to talk about that.
And so that's one of the reasons that like we really resonated early on. I'm like, okay, she's going to help us manage our money without having to do the traditional budgeting thing. But these kind of tweaks are really what changes. So the first step is education so that I can shift my mindset. Then once I've gotten to there, then I have to move into like, I call it exploration mode, where I'm actually doing due diligence and understanding where do I find opportunities. So I oftentimes tell people that Money Insights says a few things that we're really good at. The first thing is we're really good at connecting investors with opportunities. So one of our roles is to make sure that people have exposure to opportunities that they could potentially, and we're not saying do it without due diligence, but we're saying
Yep.
these are people that we've had good experiences with. These are a good place for you to start, right? Then the next one is that we help people create an opportunity fund to optimize their returns, which we can get into, or we
Yep.
can not. And then lastly, obviously, because there's no such thing as totally passive income, you have to monitor it. You just have to.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
ideally, you're working with other people who have experience. And like, that's kind of what we bring is experience doing this at a high level, working with a lot of people that have been ultra successful. So we can kind of hold your hand, help you move into that space in a way that feels a lot more comfortable than if you were just kind of trying to, go it alone.
Agreed. I think that finding your people, finding your masterminds, finding the people that you can learn from is paramount.
Totally
It's
agree.
paramount. Now, the distinction is like with your mom, you're not finding someone to pass off responsibility or there are some people that love to play victim in the finance industry. Well, someone told me to do this, therefore, no. When you're 100% responsibility, and first, like you said, working with me, stop budgeting, start learning how to build wealth, hold on to your own money first, and then find places to start investing it. That's a really key piece of it. You have to have cash to create a fund. There's no magic wand.
Yeah, and I like what you said. The thing that kind of kept coming into my head as you were talking there is we have to take control, right?
Yeah.
Like we have to take control of the things that we're doing, how we're doing it, and that next step becomes a lot easier when we feel like we're really in control.
That's it. We're in control. Okay, so let's talk about life insurance. I think that's important. Candidly, for the first 5 years or so in my brand, I wasn't really giving the advice of buying into life insurance because it's really not for everyone. Term life insurance is a solid investment for beginners if you just make sure that you're protected, but there's lots of layers to life insurance. So first, yes, be protected. Make sure you have enough to take care of your family. For example, if your dad passes away at a young age, that there's not a gaping hole there for the
Yep.
people that he needs to be supporting or you need to be supporting. I have more life insurance than my husband does,
Well, that's
right?
probably smart. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like it's one of those things. I was going to say you can't have too much. Like, you don't want to just pay premiums for the
No.
fun of it. But I can tell you this much: going back to my mom's story, my mom had come to my dad. So he would get a raise each year, and then one of the things that they could do is increase the life insurance amounts too. Well, just like 6 months earlier, my mom goes. I was actually my dad was sorry. My dad goes to my mom and says, like, hey, we got the raise. Like, we should probably up the life insurance again. And she's like, every time you get more money, we increase these things. We don't have any more money. And so my mom convinced them not to increase their life insurance. But my point here is just to say any life insurance is incredibly valuable if and when the situation comes up that you need it.
Yeah, of
So
course.
so term insurance is great. I use term insurance myself. People are sometimes surprised, but I use term insurance and I use other types of life insurance
Right.
depending on what it is that I'm trying to accomplish.
That's right. So let's dig into that. So there are benefits to life insurance, not just term insurance. And I want you to, so listening to this, as if I'm your coach in this moment, what I want you to do is put your hat on as if you're looking for new ways to invest your money and you're wanting to explore life insurance. So let's open it up from there. You're not really sure that this is what you want to do. I have some benefits here and I want to break each one of them down. Okay.
Okay.
First, let's talk about tax advantaged growth. What is that, Christian?
Okay. So life insurance is built with several tax advantages just baked into it. So the easiest way to think of it is it's kind of like a Roth IRA from a tax standpoint. In other words, I pay taxes on the front end. I take money in from my check. I pay the taxes. I put it into the policy. And as long as our design is appropriate, is correct, then we never pay taxes again. And the reason is because there's a death benefit that comes in and pays back any loan that we've taken out. We can get into that side of it in a minute, but at the end of the day, it will act exactly like what a Roth IRA does. And by the way, I'm way more in favor of Roth IRAs than I am traditional. So
Me too. Me too. Which we won't talk about today, but I am too. Okay, the second one, liquidity. What is it?
Okay, so when we build these policies, and this is where people get a little bit confused, right? So life insurance has a bad name because there is a myriad of ways to design it. And so what happens is then people assume that everything is designed this way, or everything is designed that way. Well, what we do is we create a policy that's designed for maximum cash, minimum cost. So then I can use the cash that I have in the policy, borrow against it to then go and invest. And the whole point is to do one thing. It's to improve the returns that we're getting on the investment. So it doesn't literally increase it, but what it does is by changing the cash flow model, we're suddenly doing some things, some really powerful things that make that happen. The key there is I have to design the policy the right way. Otherwise, you won't get the same benefits, right? I can design a policy. This is crazy, Lisa. Sometimes I think about this and I'm like, it's no wonder people are confused. So I could design a policy that had zero cash. Let's say I had $100,000 premium that I'm putting in the first year. And when we talk about this, like, premium for us just means a contribution that I'm planning to invest with, right? This isn't going to cost. The great majority of this is going directly to cash. So, but the point is, if I put that 80,000, or let's say that I put the $100,000 in there, I could have a policy that has zero cash value in year one, or I could have one that has $85,000, $90,000 in year one. Well, that is a massive difference, right? And so it's no wonder that people look at this and they're like, well, of course I don't want to use that for investing because that just wouldn't make sense. Well, over here, we're showing you how create the liquidity, but you're also driving 5 to 6% tax-free return that's liquid and safe and reliable. So anyway, I know I answered more than what you asked, but that's kind of the liquidity element. We have to build the policy so that there's cash, because again, this isn't money that's supposed to go toward paying for a death benefit. That's an extra benefit that just exists. Let me just back up, because I think this is super important. When I put money into these policies, I'm not looking for that to be the investment. And this is super important because sometimes when people come back, they're like, well, I don't want to invest in life insurance. And we're like, well, great. We don't want you to invest in life insurance, but we do want you to optimize your investments. And you can do that. It's just numbers. Like the math proves it out. I can do that by running the policy through the life insurance contract, borrowing against it. And now I'm literally able to create value in two places at the same time, just because of the unique structure that exists with life insurance. Yeah.
That's the leverage framework. And just FYI, for those of you who are in my community, in my world, I'm launching a mastermind where Christian and Rod will come in and teach some of these things. We'll bake them down. This is a high level on the podcast today, just for you to get to know Christian and some of these concepts and what questions to be asking. But over time, if you want to come learn from us, there will be plenty of opportunities to do that. So nice little seed there for what's to come, right?
Yes. And I can actually throw out so before we came on, I was like, oh, I have to have my call to action. So just so people know, they can go to moneyinsightsgroup.com/Lisa, right? And you can go and get, like, we have some goods there for you. There's some videos, but more importantly, the thing to probably do is just go download the ebook that's called Investment Optimization 101. How to boost investment returns using high cash value life insurance. So that's a good way to and you can read through it in like 15, 20 minutes and you get a really good vibe for what we're talking about. And then if you're like, hey, this is like really speaking to me, I can see the value, then you can take a deeper dive into some of the videos or check out other stuff. But that's a good way for people to moneyinsightsgroup.com/Lisa.
Someone's probably driving right now. We'll put that in the show notes. Thanks for that, Christian. Okay, so here's all the advantages of life insurance and why you want to think about it as an alternative to just putting your money in the stock market. First of all, it's not putting your money in there to grow at 4% per year for the next 25 years, which is something that's sold out there. People have that conversation. No, what Christian's saying is that it's an alternative to and an opportunity to put money in tax advantaged, pull it out, borrow from it, and make investments. And Christian and Rod teach about this. Protection, of course, so there's a death benefit attached to it. That's all, life insurance is typically taught as protection, but it doesn't have to be just protection. And then we have legacy. And I'm going to challenge that because, to your point with your mom, your family inherited, so to speak, that $500,000, but it really didn't build a family legacy. It really helped your mom get on to the next chapter of her life. It was a nice cushion. But if you're wanting to buy all this life insurance for the purposes of building legacy, I'm going to challenge that concept altogether, because it's how you use the policies and how you build wealth that will build the legacy, and mindset is such an important part of legacy. Don't just go and buy a $2 million policy thinking that it's going to pass down to your kids and then all of a sudden you have a legacy, because it never really works out that way. That money runs through a family real fast. Create a legacy by teaching, by mentoring, by educating, and by leveling up your mindset. And that's exactly what Christian and I are here to do today in this conversation.
Well, and there's really no shortcut, right? Like this isn't a get rich quick scheme. And when we're talking about using life insurance, I'm talking about a way to just improve the returns that I'm already doing in real estate or whatever else, right? So this isn't suddenly going to go like change I shouldn't say that. Moving into the alternative space will change your trajectory, like without question. So just for a reference point, I was probably getting like 8 to 10% in my mutual funds, but I averaged something like 30% on my alternative investments, including the ATM deal that lost money, right? So like, and that changes the trajectory of your financial life in a really significant way. I kind of got off on a tangent and I forgot what question you asked, Lisa.
Ultimately, what you're saying is the bigger risk, the bigger the reward.
So yes and no. I'm actually going to suggest that, I remember, Lisa, we talked about legacy, and I'm going to go back to that. Most people assume that the risk is automatically higher when I go from traditional to alternative. That is absolutely not the case. If you look at risk-adjusted returns, which just means that I'm actually taking into account the risk that I'm taking on in order to get the return, then that gives us a better quantifiable, again, we're talking about how much risk. And what you'll find is that typically the risk-adjusted returns are much, much better in the alternative space. And again, I keep sounding like I'm anti-market money. I'm not. I have money in the market. I even have a defined benefit plan. So like I use some of the tools that are really valuable in that space. But the thing that's really accelerated my wealth building has come over on the alternative space. And of course, everything on the alternative space, I just run through my life insurance policy. By doing that, instead of getting 12% on the return, I end up with a IRR of 15 or 16%. And gotcha. That's the huge benefit for it. So, yeah. Legacy. Gotcha. Legacy. Okay. So you're challenging me on the legacy question. I absolutely agree with you on this. Legacy, there's no shortcut, and life insurance doesn't suddenly just like, it's not a shortcut to getting a legacy. The far better way to do it would be to build wealth, right? To build your wealth, life insurance being an element of that, some of it for protection purposes, some of it for acceleration purposes. It can protect it from, say, okay, as a good example, I can put a life insurance policy in an irrevocable life insurance trust, and it's completely outside the estate. So let's just say I have a $10 million estate. I'm worried about running up against the estate tax limits. Well, life insurance can be a really easy way to make sure that I have the liquidity to manage the wealth that I built. But again, to your point, I don't think just feeling like, hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of life insurance to pass it on to the next generation, it's probably not a great play.
So rethink that and join a new conversation. All right, we're going to switch gears. This has been super valuable, Christian.
I'm having a blast, Lisa, so thank you.
I am too. And I would love to hear from our listeners what was valuable, because we can always have Christian back. What is it that you want to learn from next? And of course, like I said, he's got his Money Insights podcast. So just the different topics that recently came through on the Money Insights. And you can join their newsletter. I get their updates. I love listening to them. Using AI. How you just put $100K in Bitcoin, risque.
Yep.
We won't go into it, but that's there. I'm sure you'll hear all about it. The 529 trap, which I believe in too. I don't believe everyone should be funding a 529. It was highly oversold by the industry for a very long time, but there's alternatives. So again, just pushing up against the edges of the industry. And I really appreciate that. We have to question everything. And to that point, switching gears, and then we're going to close out with something fun. Let's pick on Dave Ramsey for a minute.
I love picking on Dave Ramsey. It's my favorite.
I do too. And I'm not a fan of Dave Ramsey. And I believe that Dave Ramsey served a purpose for a certain mindset, for a certain generation. And the truth is, Dave Ramsey is teaching to poor people. He's teaching to people who have broke mindset.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Like, the bigger issue that I see is that Dave Ramsey's treating people like they're not smart enough to understand how money actually works, or they're not disciplined enough to actually do the things that you need to do to build wealth. Therefore, instead of doing this and learning it, just do this because it's easier. You're not so like I hear him saying you're not smart enough to get this. And when he usually gives, his reasons for it, it's usually like, well, look at people do this. But like when an individual takes control and like owns it, the worst thing they can do is follow the cookie cutter advice that Dave Ramsey gives, because they'll find the only good part is that he believes in being disciplined and saving. And that obviously is critical. You have to save money in order to ever build. But like the way that they're doing it, the way that he's suggesting doing it, it is so broken. It's so out of touch. And I just really have a fun time picking on Dave. He doesn't care. I mean, but I like it.
Yeah. Well, what doesn't work for me is the word budget altogether. Cash flow is way sexier, way more exciting when you open up into the bigger picture about how you're using money. Budgeting is so limited. It's a limited construct. And I put together my last podcast episode. I'm going to digress a minute, but my last podcast episode was about the history of money and women. And it was the last 100 years or so where women started having more access to money. But here's the truth. Budgets were taught to women as a system of control because women didn't control the money. We were given a budget to manage groceries, to manage gas, because it wasn't our money. If we're going to step into a new reality as women, we have to shatter old paradigms and old systems of control. And that's why I'm not talking about budgets, because there's other ways to manage money that are way more fun. And you teach those. And
I love that, because they're not only more fun, they're more effective because you can get behind it, right? To your point, this mindset shift, budgeting just sounds like, I hear that and I'm like, yes, but suddenly if you're like, hey, we're going to show you how to free up as much cash flow as possible, you're like, okay, well, I like extra money. And so even just that framework makes a big, big difference, and you can go in and be really passionate. I love what you said. I totally agree that it's still a problem. I'm married Heather is my second wife. We've talked about Heather. And we've been married for, 3 years. We've been together like 6 years, right? But in her previous marriage, she described exactly what you're saying. Like this idea of trying to be like, here's exactly what you can spend, and feeling like it was his money. And that just like pains me because, well, lots of reasons, and all of them. But the reality is we have to your point, make that shift. And it's just a better, happier, more fulfilling way to live.
It is. It's totally time. Thank you. And thank you, Dave, for being the champion for personal finance for however long you have. And it's time for a new era. It's time for a new regime.
It is time.
Rick and I are like saying, there's
Is he ever gonna retire? Goodness.
Get out of here.
Just kidding. He's probably not going to retire.
No, probably not. All right. So you already gave us a free tool. Thank you so much for that. That's super generous of you. It's a great opportunity to go learn some more, start digging in. Now, first of all, learn before you take action. If it doesn't feel right, don't take action before you invest. Do your research, find trustworthy people, get into the game. That's the most important part of this whole conversation. That's the point of this. My podcast is not to pick apart the finance industry. My podcast is here to inspire you to take action. Learn what you need to learn, find trustworthy people, and get going. And so for someone who's ready to take action, take the free tool, but what are some other ways? How are people working with you? How, if someone's like, I'm ready right now, what do you want them to do?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can do. We have an interesting philosophy at Money Insights. We call education without pressure. That's our mantra. And we never ask people for meetings. Like, we have not asked people for meetings in years. So what we do is we put the information out, we put the education opportunities out there, and if they like it, they can click the button and schedule a time on our calendar. And we just like to keep it at that level because, to be totally honest with you, I don't really want to talk to people who have like this awful view of life insurance and aren't getting what we're saying. Like, it just isn't useful, right? So that's not the person I want to talk to. We're wanting to talk to the people who are willing to do a little bit more due diligence, understand the concept, and have a desire to do something more, better, accelerate the way that they're building wealth. And we can absolutely help in that category. So,
Yeah.
but the easiest way to get us is to go to the exact same page, moneyinsightsgroup.com. I didn't ask you, Lisa. I hope that's an okay name. Does that work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
moneyinsightsgroup.com/Lisa /Lisa. And just go watch the video, do that first, download the ebook. And then if you're intrigued, click the button and schedule a time and you can get right onto one of our people's calendars. So that's probably the best approach. But the thing that I just want to emphasize is you will not get pressure from us. This is totally your journey, right? You have to be the one that's motivated and excited and wanting to take action. And we just want to help make it as easy as possible, make it accessible.
Agreed. I believe that sales is service, and I step into conversations all day long with people, and I want to serve. And we are here to serve. There is no pressure in either of our worlds. We want you to learn what you need to learn and choose the right people to work with. So we're grateful that you're listening to us now, and hopefully you'll stay in our world. So I implemented this, and I love it. It's called Fast Round Talk. So I just have some fast questions for you.
I'm
You
excited.
and I are built similarly, so you won't think about it forever. We're going to start it off pretty easy, though. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains. No, neither. Can I say neither?
What is it?
Okay. Well,
what is it?
I guess it's the beach, but the problem is, I know this is fast. I just have to give a quick story. So I don't like sand all over me. It just drives me crazy. You have to shower and do a lot of work. It gets in all sorts of crevices, and so that's not really me. I don't mind it if I'm just like not water and like just anyway. But then on the mountainside, I grew up in the mountains. I'm in the great state of Utah. That's what's all around me. Heather and I went to southern Utah a couple years ago, and we had a run-in with a massive and terrifying snake. And so since then, we've been like, oh, we can't do our hiking as much either. So anyway, that's why I'm a little bit conflicted. But I'm gonna still say, no, I'm gonna go beach.
Okay. Okay, I love it. Cash or credit card?
Credit card.
Pickleball or watching sports?
Pickleball. But I like both. I have a pickleball court in my backyard. I love pickleball.
I know. I read that about you. That's why I threw that question in there. Save or spend? Got to pick one.
Both. Spend. I spend money. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I make it and spend it.
There you go. Make it, spend it, and savings, of course, but it's way more fun to spend it. So if you follow Christian on Instagram, he tells some really great stories with him and his wife and the time freedom that you've been able to create for the lifestyle that you have. So it's pretty fun. I love watching wherever you guys are going on different trips and stuff.
Thank you.
So
it's been fun.
that. What's one book that has changed your life?
The Go-Giver. It's actually the Go-Giver series. I liked the Go-Giver Sells More, which sounds really weird because it's a sales book, but it really resonated with me. So if you haven't checked out, it's Bob Berg and Brandon. Oh, no, not Brandon Man. Someone Man. Anyway, it's a great book. The Go-Giver series is just fantastic.
I love it. Coffee or green smoothie?
Green smoothie. I can't have caffeine. It makes me jittery.
Oh, yeah.
No caffeine in my world ever. Like none. Zero.
You don't need any more caffeine.
Nope. I'm just jazzed up enough just as I am.
You are. Favorite quote?
Well, I guess this is a quote. It's kind of like a mantra / quote, but I did hear it from somebody, and it's the situation is the boss. So I just genuinely believe that like the situation runs it, and too often we go into these situations thinking here's exactly what's going to happen, and in reality the situation's going to tell us what happens.
That's true. Good. I like that. What's one thing you wish more women knew about wealth?
I would just say just like the confidence, just to have the confidence to really go after it. I don't even know if I could boil it down to one thing, but I just really feel like it gets me excited when I meet with and I talk to women who have just like, who are digging in, people like you who are confident and going for it. Like, that's not one thing, but that's what I love. One
thing I wish more women knew is that you got this.
Yes. You got this. That's a good one. I wish I would have said that, Lisa. Dang it.
Well, that's basically what you just said.
Okay. Yeah, you said it better. Thank you.
All right. What's next for you? So there's another summit coming up. What else? What else do you want people to know about what's next for you and Money Insights?
Well, so I have a lot of things going on. I'm excited that you told me this because I've talked about Heather a few times in this. Heather and I are building another branch of our brand, which is called Money Insights for Kids. And we're very excited about it. It'll probably consist of, a podcast and a book and even maybe a mastermind. We're still like building a lot of it, but we're passionate about teaching parents how to teach and talk to their kids about money. If you think about it, like that has such a huge impact on people's lives, like literally their entire life. And I look back, my dad was an accountant, like he was a CPA, and I did learn some stuff and picked up on it. But even then, like not near to the extent that I wish I would have. And I probably would have like avoided some of those early bad decisions I made if I had been more educated. So anyway, Money Insights for Kids, kind of my big one. I'm also doing, this one's not going to be as relevant for the group, but I'm also building a group called the 7-Figure Producer, where I'm teaching people how to build a financial services practice and become a 7-figure producer. So anyway, those are all the things we have going on, and it's probably more than I can handle.
Wow, that sounds like that's your MO though. Go big or go home.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Go home. I love that about you. Well, I learned a lot today. I know that our listeners did too. There's a lot coming up. I love that you're working with parents, because in my world, we talk about that mindset before the age of 7. So parents out there, first, level up your own mindset before you focus on your kids, and it will come along. And so I'm so glad that you and Heather are going to do that. I'm going to meet Heather in St. George for Take the Lead coming up April 24th. We're going to do it again in Vegas. That. Money Insights has stepped up and become a sponsor for Take the Lead. So thank you so much to both Christian and Rod for supporting what's going on with women. Take the Lead. You can go to my website. You can go to my Instagram, find out about Take the Lead. Heather will be there. You'll get to meet her in St. George. And I'm just super grateful to continue to partner with you in very meaningful ways. So thanks for that, Christian.
We couldn't be more excited. I'm going to go to St. George. I'm not going to be at the conference. I'm not welcome, but I am very excited to support the whole thing. I just think what you're doing, Lisa, is inspiring. I really love it and get excited about it. So we're just happy to be able to support you in some small way.
All right. Well, thanks for joining this conversation today with me and Christian. I hope that you laughed. I hope that you learned, and we will catch you. I'm changing some things up in the podcast. This is the first one of many to come. We're going to be teaching some tangible, specific things that you want to learn about when it comes to money. I've done a great, my journey in the last 3 years has been all about mindset. Now let's level up the mindset. Let's learn what you need to learn, get in there, start taking action. And I'm so grateful that we're spearheading this conversation today, Christian. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Real Money. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and let us know what you love about the show. Your feedback is invaluable as we continue to empower women to take control of their financial lives. Until next time, keep thriving, and remember, you deserve real money.